Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Given the import of the Rockville High School reported rape, I discussed the situation with Dr. Smith and our police chief and our corrections department in the last 24 hours. Let's begin where we should begin, with our profound sympathy for the young girl. Rape is a loathsome crime. No young girl, no woman, should have to endure the trauma, physical harm, and emotional damage that rape causes. Victims and their family members know the extreme pain and emotional toll that is created by this heinous act. We condemn this reported crime and offer the victim, her family, and the entire Rockville High School community our support. Our county is bringing its full resources to bear in the aftermath of this reported crime. Our school system is making sure the victim has access to all the resources she may need going forward, counseling and others. Our county has a very active victim assistance and sexual assault program that will be made available to her as well. The superintendent advises me that they are conducting a comprehensive safety audit of the high school and using it to inform what they may need to do system-wide. And I have informed the superintendent that I will support any additional funding that is required to ensure our schools have the resources they need to make sure our kids are safe. Let me turn to other matters. Let's talk about Metro. As many of you know, the Metro Board recently approved the FY18 budget. This was an extremely difficult budget. They had a $290 million deficit to fill. There were not any good options. It was a budget that was initially labeled as shared sacrifice, and that is in fact what it involves. Our local jurisdictions ponied up $40 million each in additional dollars in order to bridge that gap, but it did not bridge it completely. So there are some fare increases, there are some service cuts. We were able to address some of them, not all of them, but there are some. It was, in my judgment, again, not a good budget, but not a budget for which there were good options. And it underscores why we need dedicated funding. Absolutely. Every day, my office and the county executive gets letters with respect to the incredible impact that FAA has had on our community. It has had an incredible impact because what was in the past a minor annoyance shared by many throughout the region is now a concentrated, intolerable situation for many communities along the Potomac River, including our communities in Montgomery County. Other communities like Phoenix have gone to court. This is a nationwide problem, not just a Montgomery County problem. Where they implemented these new plans, it has created incredible uproar across the country. The city of Phoenix has filed suit against FAA. Our county has been working closely with FAA, but quite frankly, we have not gotten the answers that we're looking for. I will be sending a letter to our county executive urging him to explore seriously following suit with Phoenix and filing a suit on behalf of our county's residents against FAA to have this damage undone. One of the issues that I had not anticipated, and being on the Montgomery County Council and certainly not as council president, is the issue of cemeteries. But it has obviously become a major issue in our community, particularly with respect to African American communities that did not have identifiable cemeteries. Actually, in Tobytown, there was an identifiable cemetery that was not kept up in the way in which it should have been kept up, and which HOC assures me that on Thursday, weather permitting, they will begin that cleanup process and make it right by that community. At the same time, we have an issue in West Bard with the Macedonian Baptist Church with respect to the African American burial grounds there that we believe are there. You are aware that the county executive and I sent a letter over to the planners basically saying to them, we need to find common ground. We need to build trust. We suggest mediation as a way to bring that about so that all the people involved in this process can have greater confidence in the outcome. It is my belief that that would be a positive step. It is my hope that it will take place. The planners had contemplated that themselves, so I am confident that we will go forward and work out the details with respect to it, and hopefully, again, create more trust in our county government where that trust seems to have been frayed. And finally, on that issue, I am working with Councilmember Craig Rice on legislation with respect to cemeteries. Other communities like Prince George's County have legislation in place that ensures there's an inventory of burial grounds, and that inventory then would be guide in what happens at the subdivision staging area, or the subdivision aspect of our development process. So what you want to have is you want to have an inventory of these burial grounds so that when people come forward with development plans, we know ahead of time, as opposed to catching up, that we've got an issue to be dealt with that would then be dealt with by making sure that there isn't development on top of burial grounds. Why don't I stop there and open it up to questions?
With regard to the burial grounds aspect, having to build near cemeteries is not a new issue, but creating a complete registry of the people who might have been buried there. Is Montgomery County trying to be new and innovative in that respect?
No, again, this is modeled after other legislation that Prince George's County has. Actually, Howard County has legislation as well. So we're trying to catch up, not be innovative.
How widespread is the usage of the systems such as the cities you're mentioning?
You'll have to ask them. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer.
Roger, the West Bard Cemetery was actually came to light as a result of a process that the planning department already has.
Yes.
For architectural, archaeological inventory. What would you be adding to that?
Well, what you'd be adding is an affirmative inventory. We have people, we actually gave money to have an inventory. We don't have that in our process, if you will, integrated into the process so that we know at the front end that, oh my goodness, we believe that there's a burial ground here. And if we believe that to be the case, then you need to do the delineation in order to make sure you know where it is so that you don't have development that disturbs burial grounds. So that's the piece that we don't have in place today.
Doesn't the Maryland Historic Trust keep that in?
They have. I think we actually contracted with members in the historical community to do an inventory once upon a time. Now we're trying to integrate that work into our planning process more formally.
What groups of people is the county going to be working with in order to make sure all of this information is gathered?
Say that again. So there's an inventory process. We'd ask the planners to do the inventory, but that citizens could raise their hand and say, we believe that there's a burial site here, okay? Mm-hmm. So that would be part of the legislation, making sure that citizens have the ability to raise their hand and inform our planners that they believe that there's a burial ground there. Okay.
Have those in Macedonia been receptive to mediation? What has their response been to that so far?
I think their response is that they'd like to be involved in the mediation process. They have some ideas with respect to who the mediators are. And so those details will have to be worked out. But I think the bottom line is people think that this would advance the prospects of coming together, which we should always strive to do.
What are the cost estimates at this point for possibility of mediation services?
Not very expensive. I don't have a number for you.
On the prepared statement you read at the top, not to trivialize any of the content of it, this is all stuff all messages that have been conveyed before since this happened. Is there some reason to compel to repeat this because of the national attention or the feedback you're getting from the community?
Well, one, again, I had this conversation yesterday with Dr. Smith and with our police chief, et cetera. And in the course of that conversation, I raised the issue of does he need any additional resources to make sure that our schools are safe. So I just wanted to make sure that I was reaching out to him and understood what his needs are in order to make sure that our community understands that this is a top priority for our school system and a top priority for our county to make sure that our kids are safe.
Was he specific at all about costs or specific items that you or specific?
You know, issues like cameras, you can imagine that they are doing a safety audit inventory. And I thought that was interesting that they are looking at all their structures, make sure that they are as safe as they should be, and then try and extrapolate from that, what do we need to do for the system as a whole? What are the lessons that we've learned here? So they've already taken some steps immediately, but they are broadening that to ensure that they are doing everything they know how to keep our kids safe.
Would they be auditing every school building?
They are doing an audit of the Rockville High School first, and to determine whether or not that audit leads them to broader conclusions with respect to the school system as a whole. But I invite you to, I am not the superintendent of schools. I invite you to ask any follow-up questions to the superintendent on that level of detail. Yes, sir.
Well, I was just going to ask about, schools have been asking for more resource officers for 10 years, maybe longer. They may ask for 10 and the council can fund 3 or whatever the numbers are.
Schools have not actually been at the forefront asking for that. PTA communities have, but not the school system. The school system doesn't fund it. The county funds it. The school system has not been among those that have said, to the best of my recollection, we need X, Y, Z. And I've been a big advocate for more school resource officers and have raised my hand to fund more school resource officers. And that, too, will be something that I'm sure we will be looking at in the context of this budget.
Apparently a couple of weeks before the alleged rape happened, there was another big fight there that was, I guess, involved one of the students there getting kicked in the head on the floor repeatedly. It was filmed and I guess put on social media. And it took a couple days for that to get to the police. There was another big fight as well, from what we're told. What are your thoughts on, I guess, the safety at Rockville High School? And I know they're doing that audit. Should parents there feel like their kids are safe right now? And then I guess the fact that it took a couple days for the police to find out about these particular fights, how troubling is that as well?
Well, I asked Dr. Smith about that as well, and he said they are reviewing their parent notification process as well. So again, I refer you to Dr. Smith for those sets of issues. I cannot speak definitively to any situation within the school system in the manner in which you describe. My goal is to make sure that they have every resource they need for that school to be safe. Okay?
Has there been any discussion between you and your colleagues, in general discussion about revisiting or reviewing policies that the corrections department, the police department has regarding undocumented immigrants, given the situation you're facing here at the uproar?
So what I would say to you is that there was no aspect of how we do our work relating to immigration that's implicated in this terrible act. Okay, absolutely none. So I spoke with our police chief, I've spoken with our corrections officers, and they say to me in no uncertain terms, we cooperate with ICE to protect public safety. And we cooperate with ICE consistent with our constitutional requirements. So we have always felt that we do this work in a way that puts public safety first. And again, no aspect of what took place here, a terrible, terrible, heinous act, no aspect of that act implicates how we do our work. is I think everyone here knows these individuals were apprehended by ICE at the border, were put in a federal program, pursuant to a federal program for undocumented minors, were then reunited with family members living in Montgomery County, and our police had no interaction with these individuals up until the point in time when this terrible reported crime took place. So there is no linkage between how we do our work in this regard and this terrible crime.
ICE says you don't cooperate with them. They said that they issued a detainer for an individual, not these two that were just arrested, but a different individual from El Salvador in November, and that the county denied the detainer. The county executive says he doesn't know what ICE is talking about. Are you privy to this at all? Do you know what ICE is talking about?
So here's what I would say to you, because it's something that I raised with the police chief, who is, as you may know, the head of the Major Cities Chiefs Association, an association of the large jurisdictions, that there were hundreds of people on the list, hundreds of jurisdictions on the list that DHS put out of communities that are not, quote, fully cooperative. And they're not fully cooperative in DHS's mind because they do not honor civil detainer requests. And our county does not honor, as do those hundreds of jurisdictions, does not honor civil detainer requests without probable cause because of a Fourth Circuit decision that says it would be unconstitutional, because of a Maryland Attorney General's opinion that said it would be unconstitutional, and because our county attorney has said that it would violate the law. So the notion that counties like Montgomery County are being held out as not being fully cooperative when we fully comply with the law as we understand it to be is simply not okay. And my hope is that the Police Chiefs Association will be raising that in a meeting they are having with Secretary Kelly this week. Because it's not okay to tar communities like us for honoring the Constitution of the United States of America.
So did the county not comply with that?
I do not have details with respect to that.
If I could move away a little bit from the area of law enforcement and police, what else did you talk with Dr. Smith about yesterday? Did you mention any about the just academic programs the students might have been?
I don't call the superintendent of schools on a Sunday afternoon to talk about academic programs.
Have you identified any other resources so far? I know you're going to talk about with the school system about what resources you can provide to make things safer. Are there anything off the top of your head that you can sort of identify already that you would like to implement or offer to the schools that they don't have now?
No, I really think the first order of business is for them to advise us as to what they think they need, okay? As council president, I'm not an engineer. I am not someone specializes in this. They have people that look at this every day. I will say to you that one of the issues that was raised that surprised me was the question of bathroom doors. Not something that I would have thought of on my own, but Dr. Smith raised the issue as to whether or not the bathroom doors should be more like airport doors, which is that you don't have a closed door so that something like this couldn't happen behind a closed door. So they're looking at that issue. If they conclude that those are some of the structural changes they need to make, then that is something that I would certainly support, providing resources to help them get there.
What has the feedback from the community about this Rockville rape issue been like? What are some of the comments you've received?
I think it is fair to say that nerves are frayed, that people are on edge, people are angry. I've certainly felt that. My colleagues have felt that. Dr. Smith has felt that. There's no one in public life who has not felt that in our community. Senator Cardin, Senator Van Hollen. This has ignited a firestorm of anger, and we've all felt it.
What have been the worst comments? Have you gotten any threats?
I'm not going to comment.
Have you gotten any good comments, anything encouraging?
No, not many.
I saw that the council is considering a $300,000 appropriation to increase security at this building. What's that going to look like? Does that mean like airport-style scanning at the front doors? Are the public going to be increasing the scan as they enter the council office building?
I think the bottom line answer to that question is yes, that we've been looking at this for some period of time to conform our practices to the Maryland State Legislature, to other legislative bodies, to make sure that we are protecting the people who work in this building and the people who visit this building.
So what is it exactly going to look like to increase security measures here?
I think there will be scanning devices like airports, as you suggest.
And do you know how quickly that those might be installed?
I don't. I believe our staff can get back to you with respect to the details of that.
Okay, and is this in response to some of the anger that you've heard over this issue?
This has been in the works again for many months. At every one of our council retreats every year, this conversation has come up. And so this is an ongoing evaluation of how do we make sure that the people who work here, the people that visit here, are protected, and to look at best practices throughout the country and throughout the region, and to make sure that we are conforming with those. And so we believe these measures would achieve that result.
Would you prefer to keep it open, or do you think this is truly necessary at this point? Because, I mean, it's been like this for how long now? They just kind of walk in, public walks out, walks in.
Well, I was one of those who used to visit the White House and mourn the day that we had to put up barriers in front of the White House. And I used to work on Capitol Hill and mourn the time when we now have to have people go through a visitor center. So this is a reality of life now, and we have to not put our heads in the sand and not have a situation arise where we are putting people at risk that we shouldn't be putting at risk.
Has anybody who works here or visited here sort of expressed concern that they might not have enough protection here?
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Well, I think I answered your question. People have shared with us their concerns.
Has there been a specific incident in which?
There have been specific instances, but it's not, just general security matters.
Would this security enhancement include new arrangements for the 5th and 6th floor access, the staff?
I don't believe so. I think it's primarily the 3rd floor hearing room and things of that nature.
The potential FAA lawsuit, what would be the nature of that?
That they did not adequately, and have to look at the Phoenix lawsuit, that they did not adequately inform the public or take into account public concerns with respect to this, that this was a process that really operated in much of a vacuum and did not adequately take into account the impact on communities. Again, what had existed before was a minor annoyance. And I lived along the Potomac, and you kind of knew when you bought a home out there that you would hear an airplane every now and then. Now, oh my goodness, it is terrible. And property values really are being affected, and the quality of people's day-to-day life. I mean, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, if not earlier, and going all day long. And these planes are coming so much lower than they ever did before, and in this concentrated area. So instead of it being dispersed, it is now so concentrated that it's really causing havoc in many communities around the country.
Do you know exactly what happened inside the FAA, the regulatory or technical changes that came? Because did anyone have input into this?
Very few people had input. And I actually had a conversation with a pilots association the other day with respect to it. So there was a desire to use modern technology to more fine-tune approaches and departures. So the technology actually does exist. And people said, well, this is a good thing. It'll save fuel. It'll be more efficient. And so let's use our best technology to really do it this way. And they did that in sort of a vacuum as to its impact on communities. So we have to stand up for our peeps.
Montgomery County would you like the traffic rerouted over?
Well, actually, over the river works for a lot of people, right? And over Virginia works for a lot of people.
Not Tacoma Park.
No.
Roger, just one more question on the security thing. The council's meeting in closed session to discuss building security. Why was it necessary to meet in closed session to discuss this? It's going to be a very public issue, obviously. The public's going to count this as security.
Right, there are different issues that are being discussed.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So were there threats made toward the council?
No.
Violence, anything like
No.
that?
No.
Okay.
But
Unless you were assuming the Bill Turk role in this conversation. That's
There's a lot of incendiary language around this Rockville rapes issue, and so I didn't know if you guys had been threatened or
No.
violence, something like that.
fair question.
There have been very ugly things said that are, yeah.
What's your message to the community about people who have said ugly things and people who might be considering sending additional messages your way?
Well, I think our message as a county is that this was, in fact, a terrible, terrible incident. Loathsome, heinous. And that our county is doing everything within its power to respond to it. That our school system has an obligation under the law to admit students who reside in Montgomery County. That is our United States Supreme Court ruling. School system is doing what it must do under the law. Our county puts a priority on public safety, and we do cooperate with federal enforcement officials.
What about students who come from outside the Montgomery County to go to school here?
That's a different issue that I'm not prepared to address.
Do you have a timeline on the lawsuit involving the FAA in terms of when you might file that?
I'm not filing it. I am urging the county executive to instruct Mr. Hanson, our county attorney, to look into the matter seriously and to consider filing a lawsuit.
Is
So,
the NTSB, excuse me, sorry, to interrupt. Is the NTSB report on the airplane crash a couple of years ago near the Gaithersburg Airport, is that being incorporated into this?
no.
Okay.
Have you scheduled a closed session to discuss this lawsuit? Yeah.
Not yet. But we will. We'll call it the Turk.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we do our work. Thank you.